Matthew Crawford here. Let's fly, and it's going to be bush flying today with the Airbus Helicopters H125, the Squirrel helicopter. And we'll look at some of its limitations in this kind of flying environment and learn about some useful planning procedures to help us get around safely whilst enjoying this incredible scenery in the central highlands of Tasmania. And this is our starting location, Cradle Mountain helicopters, with Cradle Mountain itself on the horizon, looming over us there on this early morning flight in central Tasmania. We have only 3 knots of wind coming from the northwest, and we have a pretty easy to deal with cloud situation here. We might get into a little bit of low cloud, we'll see how we go. And this is the location which is in your Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 Cradle Mountain helicopters. These sheds and hangars are represented by what look like residential auto-generated scenery. That's just the way it is at the moment. Let's hop on board. Alright, and this is pretty much as the Flight Simulator will spawn us in. So a couple of things we always need to change. Just check that our altimeter is correct. Yes. Get the anti-collision lights on, and don't hit the controls like what I just did. We can close that. Now, I have here on the tablet, first of all I'm going to show you a very useful trick here, which is to hide this tablet with a tiny button in the top right there. Just hide that. So that, yes, I'm going to pop it out like this so that we can see where we are. Zooming out first, we're in the northwest of Tasmania, in the highlands here. As I said, Cradle Mountain helicopters. We're going to proceed south into the lakes at the foothills of Cradle Mountain itself, which is there, and we'll proceed round to our first landing spot in the Waterfall Valley Hut. Proceed south again, following the Overland Track. If you've ever walked that track, maybe this will bring back good memories for you. We will be aiming towards Mount Pelion West. We'll fly around here a bit, fly over Frog Flats, and land in our final destination on the short flight, which will be New Pelion Hut, which is just on the Pelion Flats over here. So we're starting off, I think, at about, yes, 2,800 here at Cradle Mountain helicopters, which is pretty much what we're going to be landing at down here as well. So we're not going to be gaining or losing a huge amount of altitude over this flight. I'm just having a bit of a think about some of this first. The Waterfall Valley Hut is at, I think, 3,300, so a little bit higher. Most of this flight we'll be doing at about 4,000 to 5,000 feet. Right, so let's get moving. We're going to be paying attention to the first limit indicator here, the FLI, and this is a synthesis of all the important parameters of torque, the turbine output temperature, and the turbine speed, and it puts it into one sort of synthetic measurement that goes from 0 to 10. We just don't want to be getting into that amber space there, and definitely don't need to be exceeding over 10 there, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. And to get moving, we just need to do a pedal turn. Oh yes, greetings passengers here. Are you looking like you're prepared for a long hike? I suppose you could hike on those. Alright, let's lift us up here. Now we're going to be anticipating a bit of right translational tendency and a bit of right... well, I need to counteract the left translational tendency, I should say, with a bit of right cyclic. And we got that right pedal ready there as well. As I lift the collective is coming up. We'll do a pedal turn to the left. As we raise it, we're just starting to get light on the skids now. There we go. A little bit of breeze from the northwest. Not a problem. Okay, not a bad lift. Starting to do our pedal turn now to the left, trying not to lose position here. Which is what ended up happening. Alright, let's start to move forward out of this dust, past the other landing spots there, over this depot and car park. Nose down, raising the collective. We're well within our limitations. Nosing down even more. Gaining a safe amount of speed. As we pass over the car park with Cradle Mountain Visitor Centre there. Autogen scenery again, unfortunately. This is the way it is. And we have the Tasmanian Highlands beckoning beyond us. How glorious. It's an early morning flight. Let's start to get this cyclic trim in. You can see the little X moving forward on the input viewer. So I'm pushing that forward and moving the stick back as I do so. The optimal climbing speed in the H125 is 65 knots. And we're doing 60 now. Getting up to 65. Now we don't need to do a massive climb here. We only need to get to about, I'm going to say 4,500 feet. It'll allow us to enjoy some of the scenery here. Well within our limits. Everything's in the green. We're looking really good. Good conditions for you lot today. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, it's glorious looking at the sunrise over those hills. Alright, we're already at 4,200 and let's start to get that cyclic trim down some more. Transferring some of that vertical speed into forward speed. How are we doing there now? We're almost up at 4,000. I'm just using the hat switch on top of the stick to adjust the cyclic trim forwards. And there we go, we've got our speed up to about 90 knots now as we steer directly towards Cradle Mountain. So we've still got the road beneath us there to see below the nose, and that leads up to the northern end of Dove Lake, which is the lake on the left there, the big low one. And on the right, it's kind of a cool lake. That's Crater Lake, not actually a volcanic crater, but I understand gouged out over millions or hundreds of thousands of years by ice and snow, leaving that incredible deep lake there. Glorious. So yes, at the northern end of Dove Lake then, that's pretty much the end of the road. So from this point on, it's just walkers and helicopters. And the H125 is a very commonly seen sight in these skies. The fleet of aircraft around here do things like sling loads into the huts, supplies, maintenance, ranger crew working in the huts and on the tracks. And H125, often they'll be seen along here with baskets to the sides there, or with sling loads. Hard-working machine in beautiful country. And just the top of Cradle Mountain, just with its head in the clouds slightly there. Wonderful, wonderful. I am not getting bored with Flight Simulator 2024 scenery. And that's Lake Rodway just below us, and behind it a saddle over which we will pass, and that should get us into a nice position to get into the Waterfall Valley Hut. I'll just zoom in a bit more here. So that's the hut we're going for. This flight, by the way, I'm going to make available to you on flightsim.to if you'd like to try this route yourself, or you can plan your own, of course. I have very deliberately chosen the landing pads because in this auto-generated scenery, some of them are quite overgrown, so the trees come up too close to the pad until we get a community editing feature where we can nominate or suggest changes. That's kind of what we're stuck with at the moment. So I've just chosen the ones which are a little bit more open and allow you to get in and out easily, or more easily than if you were completely hemmed in by trees. Okay, we're passing over the saddle. I'm going to start bringing back in that cyclic trim. So returning the cyclic trim to the center and reducing the collective also so that the speed reduces. So we want an approach speed of about 60 knots, which we're already at, so I don't need to slow down too much now. Waterfall Valley Hut's going to be over to our right, just behind that pillar there, so I'll just need to keep an eye on that. How are we doing on here? That's looking good. Start to reduce our height now. So we are going for about 3,300 feet for the landing site here, so I'll need to reduce a bit of height just yet. Sitting at about 700 feet a minute. There's the track. Can't quite see. I'll just... Can't see the hut yet, but that's alright. We'll just continue our approach here. Right, we need to do our turn now. I can see a hut right in front of Barn Bluff there. I just don't think that's the right one. So a little bit more. You can see the track in front of us there. Oh, right now I see the hut. Just quite nicely nestled into the trees there, and I can see the pad just to the left. Good. You need to use your eyes. Let's get that landing light on. And let's not get too much speed up here. Bassy sound effects telling me that I'm getting into vortex ring state, I believe. That's not what we want, so I just tilted out of that. So I allowed the machine to descend too much into its own downwash, something to be aware of. There's the pad, and I'm having to put in quite a lot of collective now, lift a lot of collective, which means I need a bit more right pedal to counteract. Stopped here now, just trying to edge it forward. Cancel more of that trim now. That's better. Now these trees are still a bit close to this pad, but we'll see what we can do. In fact, that's very close. We're just above the foliage there. Okay. That's better. The balance. It's a real balance getting this right. I'm going to look at the trees in the background too. That's going to help me line up. And hopefully put the helicopter down with a bit more confidence when I can't see the ground beneath me. Right, we're a little bit wobbly there on the right-hand skid when we set down, but hey, I'm calling that okay. Look how close those trees are. Whoops. We threaded the needle with that one. So what might happen here in reality is that we might go to idle, let some passengers in or out, get the boxes out that are needed. We can't sort of set up a manually created sling load scenario yet, so we'll just get going. And that's the view to the south, looking out to Mount Pelion West. We're going to be heading in that direction. So there's the Waterfall Valley Hut there. It's quite a modern building in real life, I believe. Just again, represented here by auto-generated scenery. So what are we going to do here? I think we will try to lift directly ahead here and do a left-hand turn to get us into that lower terrain over to our left. So we'll be pulling a fair amount of power here, and let's do it. So getting ready with our right pedal and our... I've still got a bit of trim in there, get rid of that. Our right pedal and our right cyclic ready for the effects of pulling up the collective. Here it comes now. See what the machine wants to do when it gets light on its skids. Interestingly, it didn't need quite so much pedal this time. Okay. Good. Alright, I could have made that a bit smoother, I think, but we were just in such a confined spot there with those trees, I was a bit nervous about them. That's Barn Bluff. That raises to a height of about 1,560 metres, I believe. quite prominent on the landscape around it. A lot of these mountains around here are approximately about the same height, between about 1,500 and 1,600 metres. It's about 5,000 feet. There is another of the huts. This one has an elevated landing pad, and just at the moment in MSFS 2024, we just have got such a problem with that magnetic repelling effect, where the ground effect comes in all at once over the centre of the helicopter, and it just throws you off the pad. So for this flight, I've just chosen easier ones, ones with where we're just going directly onto the ground. No issues with that annoying bug, and hopefully not too many issues with trees encroaching too much onto the landing pad area. Now we should be able to see parts of the Overland Track here. Oh, there it is, over on our right. Very nice. Thousands of people around the world have walked that track, and I'm sure it lives very strongly in their memories. Alright, what are we doing here? We need to address a couple of things, our vertical speed and our trim. So let's just get that nose trimmed down a bit. And let's talk about the trim. That's this indicator here. There is a balance ball over here which just seems to be wrong, or it definitely doesn't agree with the little stick in front that's telling us what to do. So what that stick is showing us is, if I just wobble the pedals around here a bit, we can see that I was about over here. I think I must have just kept a bit of instinctive right hand pedal in. But if you imagine this as a snake with the head out here and the tail flopping around behind it, I need to step on the head to bring that gauge more to the middle. So that's a little bit of left pedal now, and that'll get that stick pointing backwards. Stick pointing backwards, and that's in better condition now. So we're in good trim now. Still, no, we're good there with our height. They got a little bit less power on than last time. Not a problem. Great part of the world to go flying in. Does not get boring, at least not for me. There's a bit more of the track right ahead of us again. Get that landing light off. Yes, we see these little wetlands dotted around in this alpine landscape. I think there's some sort of boggy flats. Actually, the next landing site will be a good example of that. So let's just talk about some of these surroundings. We've got, that's Pelion Flats over there, just where I'm circling. That's where we're going to be landing. And have a look at Mount Oakley. That'll be a spectacular view from our landing spot. And this is Mount Pelion West, directly in front. I'm just going to approach it a bit more closely. I've lost sight of the track now, the Overland Track. But it's about in this area. Climb up to 5,000 feet. I'll just counteract that again with a bit more forward cyclic trim, pushing up on the hat switch on my joystick, and that takes the little cross further forward. Just again, not quite right on the trim there, a bit more left pedal. Better. Yeah, that balance ball's way off, so I don't know quite what's going on with that thing. Mount Pelion West. Again, 1,560 metres, about 5,000 feet. Commanding view of the landscape around here. So let us see where we're at on here. We'll just get over into this area here, Frog Flats, I should say. Be careful not to collide with the mountain. Wonderful. Good Tasmanian bush flying opportunities abound in this region. Okay, let's turn left. We will have Frog Flats below us, and we can see the lake there in front of Pelion Flats, sorry, behind. And so I'm going to need to start losing some speed here, so I'm bringing the cyclic trim back into the middle. I am lowering the collective. I feel quite high actually looking at that now. Let's see what we can do here. The approach speed is about 65 knots. I might need to be going a bit slower than that. Might see if I can get down to about 50 and see what we can do about this altitude situation here, where I am a bit high. That's Mount Oakley dead ahead. Cradle Mountain on the horizon, and Barn Bluff again, where we came from. It feels good and stable, this H125, especially when you've got your input sensitivities reduced. Maybe not quite as stable as the built-in R66, the Robinson, but you'll be able to handle this if you just give yourself a chance by lowering your input sensitivities. Must try some properly mountainous bush flying as well, where we're challenged a bit more with having to keep an eye on our instruments. The artificial horizon becomes important, the vertical speed indicator becomes very important, because it's just so easy to become disorientated in those challenging mountainous environments. Right, our landing pad is up here. I think I can just see it there as I fly directly at Mount Oakley, reducing our height yet further. The landing pad, I believe, at about 2,800 feet, and we're at 3,900 now. It is counteracting. Just bringing that trim back into the center, lowering the collective. Enjoying the view. Just wonderful. There's the Pelion Flats. And I think we're in reasonable condition here. 3,600 on our way to 2,800. About 30 knots. I had to start this descent way back over there at Mount Pelion West, so you need to think ahead. You're not going to do a nosedive into this landing pad, not with these good people on board. Okay, so I'm going to start reducing that vertical speed now. I don't want to get into another settling with power situation, which I carelessly allowed us to get into before at Waterfall Valley Hut. Let's try to do a bit better than that. A tiny tailwind here for this landing, but I think we can deal with that. Taking this very gently this time. It's a bit more relaxing without all those trees encroaching on the landing site, isn't it? Counteracted or reduced almost all of that trim that I had in now. 200 feet per minute descent. Just walking it forward really at this point. Oh, no landing light. There it is. Sorry. Yes. Raising the collective. Ready on the right pedal to counteract that effect. We'll slide around here a bit. Not too far though. Oh, I felt we just got pushed back there somewhat. It was a very smooth approach until the last few moments there. This pad is quite small, but we can do it. Believe in yourself. That lighting effect on the canopy is interesting, isn't it? More challenging. Again, I'm going to look at the trees in the back, try to imagine a line drawing back through the center of the pad, follow that imaginary line in, and hopefully that's going to improve my landing and make it a bit easier for me to judge where I am, even though I can't see it properly on this two-dimensional screen. Edging forward now, keeping that line nice, hovering and just allowing us to settle now. Contact, a bit of pivoting there on the right hand skid, lowering the collective. I think that looks like it's going to be good. Oh yes, I'm happy with that. Not bad at all, not bad at all. I would love it if you could challenge yourself with some of this bush flying. There's hours of fun to be had in glorious parts of the world like this in central Tasmania. This flight plan will be available to you on flightsim.to if you want to try this one. There will be many other routes that you could select here in Tasmania or around the world. I'd love to hear some great spots that you'd like to go flying in as well, and maybe send me some ideas for future adventures. And stay tuned on this channel. I hope you'll enjoy some of the reviews I've posted of some other aircraft and some other videos focusing on improving our helicopter flight simming skills, not least of which my own. It's a work in progress, but hey, it's not easy, it's challenging, that's why it's fun. Thanks for joining me, hope to see you again soon.